Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Anderson, and I'm here with my co-host, Joan and Elizabeth, for another performance anxiety episode. And this time, we are going to do our top 6 theater experiences or influences. Yeah. 3 for each of us. And we're doing this late in the evening, so we're a little slap happy and brain dead. So this should be fun.
I think it is. I'm already having a blast.
I know. We should have been recording all of that beforehand, you know.
Do a cold open.
Oh, God, Joan. What was your first one? What was your first influence?
Okay, so first of all, I want to preface these by saying none of my picks are actual live shows.
Mine either. Okay. Are they all movies?
Yes.
So mine are all movies that are actually like on stage, but I never saw them on stage.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So that works. I'm glad we're on the same page.
So they're all media that is not necessarily theater, because I was thinking back and I could sit here and talk about the time that I went on a field trip to New York City in the 7th grade and we got to see Les Mis on Broadway. And it was awesome. It was wonderful. But in terms of actually influencing my taste in theater, it wasn't that influential in comparison to some of these other things.
Okay.
So you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, I want you to kick it off. Tell me your first one.
All right. So my first one is actually Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet from 1996.
96?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was 11 years old, but I think I saw it a little bit later. I actually ended up seeing it like later in middle school.
Okay.
So, for one, it was an awakening in a lot of ways. But
you want to know what's funny is I almost put the 1970s version.
Oh, really?
As one of mine.
The Franco Zeffirelli one?
Well, sure.
Yeah. No, that's a great with Olivia Hussey and
the one I guess the kids are actually the actors that were in it are actually like suing now, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because they were underage and they had nude scenes.
They did. I remember that because I remember seeing that version.
Yes.
In high school.
Yes.
That was at a time, I think, when there was a lot less there was a lot less like people didn't care about nudity as much.
No.
In cinema.
And I didn't know they were underage.
Yeah. None of us knew that.
No.
Whatever.
But let's get back to yours.
Okay. So I was thinking about this, and when it came to mind, what came to mind to me first initially was I was thinking about MTV and how I was watching MTV at a young age, at a probably an inappropriately young age. So music and music videos were a huge influence on me as a kid.
Yeah.
In terms of just like exposure to media.
Okay.
And that version of Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann film, first of all, has a great soundtrack. Okay. And more importantly, the more I think about it now as an adult, it actually was very formative in shaping what I saw that Shakespeare could actually be. Mm-hmm. Without losing the integrity of the original script.
Yeah.
The original writing. It because it uses his original play. It uses the original dialogue.
Yeah.
It didn't change it at all. Movies came along afterwards that altered the scripts to be more modern language, 10 Things I Hate About You was based on Taming of the Shrew.
Right.
But that was modernized completely. Where Romeo and Juliet still used the original language, but just stuck it in a more modern context. It stuck it in a modern setting, very Americanized setting, which was really cool.
You know what's funny is I refused to watch it.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not that I've refused to watch it this whole time now, but it was just at that time when it came out and I saw what it was, and I was so in love with the other version that I was like, no, that's totally wrong. What are they doing?
I get that.
You know?
I totally understand that.
But I did that a lot because I watched a lot of old movies and stuff. So when there'd be new ones, and I was so in love with the old one, I'd be like, no, they can't remake that.
They can't do that.
They can't do that. I used to get so offended before I realized that, like, pretty much everything in Hollywood is a remake of something.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you seen the newer one since?
I haven't, actually.
So if you get a chance, it's actually on HBO Max.
Okay.
I would recommend just watching it.
Yeah.
Because it also, there's something about the energy and the way it's shot is very, like, the energy of that film is manic.
Yeah.
And in a way, visually, it captures the spirit of what that play was about, which is this kind of, like, just, like, how the heightened nature of how teenagers, you know, their emotions, everything is so important at that age. Everything feels like the stakes are so high and everything's moving really fast. And instead of swords, they have guns, and, you know, it's very, like...
Yeah.
It's
date somebody
crazy.
3 days and you're in love.
And they're in love. Like,
and then you break up 3 days later and it's the end
of
the
God.
world, you know?
Yeah. So it really opened my eyes to what you could do with Shakespeare and how pliable his scripts really are. Yeah. You know, you can take those scripts and put them in different time periods. You don't have to do them, period, in the way that you're normally used to seeing Shakespeare done. Right. And since then, I've seen so many different renditions of Shakespearean plays that have been set in, like, you could set it in space or, you know, like, during World War II or whatever. And in
space.
And it totally works. It totally works. So you can get really creative with it, and that's sort of what that movie, you know, showed me, opened my eyes to.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really awesome.
What's
yours? That was a good start. Mine, it's a classic. I mean, really, it's Phantom of the Opera. And it was so heavily, the music was so heavily influential. For me. You know, I sang it all the time. I was in choir, and it was actually one of the songs from there, Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again.
It's a beautiful song.
Yes. Was the one that actually helped me to sing well, believe it or not.
Oh, nice.
So I was kind of always one of those singers that would hear something and you know, to me, I was staying in key and singing everything, but to everybody else and my mom and my sister who knew music well enough, I was constantly changing keys and doing different things horribly. And I always believed I could sing. They weren't so sure. But I wound up...
sing. You're a beautiful singer.
Not when I was younger. But when I finally I was at a private school for a long time, but when I finally went to public school, my sophomore year, I didn't get into the choir the first semester, but the choir teacher agreed to tutor me. And so I picked that song, and she's like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, I want to learn this song." Nice. And so one of my mom's favorite memories that I kind of remember was when I was practicing. We lived out in the country. I ran out into our field on the hill, just belting this song.
Oh, nice!
And my mom and her friend were walking the dirt roads around the farm, and my mom's like, "Who is that?" And her friend's like, "That's Lisa." You know, and mom's like, "No." You know, but
you found your voice.
Yeah, I found my voice, and so that music was just so influential in my life,
Oh,
you know, and
wonderful.
it's tied to so many memories. You know, one of my closest childhood friends, adult friends, that was part of our family circle type of a thing. She loved all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she had records of it. And so sitting at her house and listening to it and,
Yeah.
you know, seeing versions, clips and different things that they used to do for adaptations of TV. And then, of course, when they finally did a full film of it. What year was that? That probably was
2000.
yeah, I was gonna say probably early 2000s.
11,
yeah,
something?
yeah, we'll have to look that one up. But
Did you ever get to see it live?
I never have. I never have. So that is still a dream of mine to be able to see that live. Yeah.
So a few years back, actually, this was probably like in 2017. I went to visit my cousin in Pennsylvania, and we took a weekend trip to New York City and just kind of like tooled around the city for a little while. And one of our plans was to go see a Broadway show, and we were gonna go see something else. I can't remember, like I don't know, like Kinky Boots or something. And he's like, "Hey, you know, feel free to say no, but would you mind if we went and saw Phantom?" And I was like, absolutely not. I mean, it's on Broadway. Like, we might as well.
Might as well.
And I had the soundtrack growing up, so I had listened to the music and I was familiar with it. But you know when you listen to the music from a musical and you're like, I mean, it's good, but I don't quite get it. I mean, I don't get what's the big deal?
Right.
You know, it's pretty, but I don't. Well, okay, so I got it as soon as that chandelier came down and like the show really started after the prologue and like the set starts changing. I'm like, oh. Okay.
Yeah, there is something different about seeing things on stage.
Yeah.
That just changes the way you understand a piece.
Yeah.
You know, or even seeing it in a movie, you know, it's just.
Well, and that like pipe organ hits you, like it just blasts right through you immediately, and you're like, all right, I'm like tethered to my seat, and I'm here now.
Yeah, absolutely,
I'm awake.
Absolutely. You know what I feel the most connected on that is ballet. Like, I don't enjoy watching ballet on TV or anything like that, you know, but when I'm there and seeing a ballet in person, I am like tethered to my seat.
Beautiful.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So,
and they make it look so easy.
They do.
And it's just so effortless.
Yeah. And it's that transformative experience that you just can't get, you know, any other way.
Yeah.
You know? So what is your number 2?
Okay, number 2 is going to come as no surprise, because we sort of talked about it on the first episode.
Okay.
In our top 10 theater experiences.
Okay.
So it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
And again, it's a movie that I stumbled upon in like middle school or very early high school. My earliest memory maybe was being 14 and seeing it for the first time. And
that's pretty young to be seeing that one.
It was, I believe, it was like the 25th anniversary of it or something. Okay. And so it was on TV.
Aha.
Yeah.
Flipping those channels and
like,
oops.
Yeah, it was like on TV. Well, my parents were very cool about letting us watch whatever we wanted, my brother and I. So like, you know, we grew up with the understanding that like this is not real, you know. So, you know, of course they didn't let us watch like porn or anything like that, but you know. But, you know, like,
I have so many ways to go with that, Joan.
I know. But if it's on TV, it's fine.
Yeah. It's fine.
But
it's not real.
But I remember I started watching this movie, and you know the lips come up, and I'm like, okay, what is this? This is different.
Yeah.
And you know they're singing this song about all these sci-fi movie references. I'm like, okay, I'm like, Susan Sarandon's in this. What's going on? And then, you know, and of course, this was before the time where, you know, you could just Google anything.
Yeah.
And you could be like, oh, Rocky Horror Picture Show. What is this? You know,
Right.
It was, you know,
Well, and it was
the internet was much clunkier back then. And
I was going to say, it was probably before you even had, like, Dish, too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even, like, read a description of it.
No.
It was literally flipping the channels with the TV guide.
I just happened to, like, it was serendipitous. I happened to find it on TV one night, and I started watching it. And then, of course, like, you know, 20 minutes in, boom, there's Tim Curry, who I'd known from Clue.
Yeah.
And, like, Home Alone Part 2.
Okay.
And
all the random things that Tim Curry has done.
Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
You know? So I knew his face, and, like, but I recognized him. But there he is in, like, full drag in a corset and high heels and fishnets. And I'm like, you know, I wasn't bothered by it at all. I was like, I was drawn in.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a very, like, it totally changed my understanding of sexuality, and it was it was another subversive piece of media, you know, and I came to find out as I researched it and learned about it that, you know, it did not do well with, like, audiences at first. It was not a commercial or critical success in the beginning. Again, I think because it subverted audience expectations a little too much for the time, but then it caught on with the midnight showings.
Yeah.
And it found its audience, you know, in people that had felt othered, you know. And, you know, while I don't identify as queer, I definitely felt like an outcast at that time in life. So it resonated very deeply with me. Yeah. And of course, I've gone on to do a lot. It's been a big part of my life, performance-wise. You know?
Absolutely.
It was my first musical. You know, I've been a part of the shadow cast multiple times in different roles. Yeah. And, you know, directing it too.
Directing it as well. And then influence, I would say, the way that when you host a burlesque show you know. Yeah. I can definitely see the influences from all of that on you.
Well,
absolutely.
Also, you know, it was one of those films too. And there's, you know, to be clear too, there's a lot of dated language in the film that's come under some scrutiny in recent years. And what people have to understand is that, you know, this was a film made in the 70s, you know. Yeah. You know, before we became more sensitive about you know, terminology and that sort of thing. Yes. So it was really it was very instrumental in changing the culture. Yeah. You know, for the better, I think. So and it made me see, like, that we all have elements of masculine and feminine energies inside all of us, and, you know, different varying degrees of that. Yeah. And so in my performances, like with the burlesque shows, I feel like I'm able to bring sort of a weird balance of that. Yeah. Of that energy. So, and it also made me want to go on and, like, you know, perform in drag and, you know, make me comfortable with those sorts of things.
You know, you were talking about having both the feminine and the masculine energies in, and it's one of the things that I used to see a lot when I was doing a lot of photography. And I probably even mentioned it to you because there's certain women that look so feminine in what would be considered masculine poses. So when you're posing in photography, most of the time you're looking for the women's soft curves and S curves and making them smaller. And then there's women, and you're one of them, that can come in and sit in a man's style type pose, a masculine pose, and look very feminine and really draw the eye in.
Oh, it's such an interesting observation.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool. I'd always get excited when I'd have a female that came in that could do that, because then I could change it up. Yeah. You know? And it wasn't even so much that I couldn't do the same poses with men. It was different with women, because it was you could almost make the masculine pose slightly soft, you know, and just do things with it that you really couldn't always do with men. Yeah. You know, and it was always a lot of fun for me to do that.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's such a cool observation.
So my number 2.
What's your number 2?
It's Hello, Dolly.
Oh, I love Hello, Dolly. Such a great show. Now, the film or the
The film I have
Okay.
that's another one. Like all three of these, I don't think I've ever seen on. No, that's not true. The third one I've seen on stage,
Okay.
performance of. But no, Hello Dolly I've never seen. But my mom was a huge Barbara Streisand fan, so I grew up in the household with Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
And to this day, if I'm having a hard time cleaning my kitchen, I crank up Neil Diamond songs and start
Love
singing
it.
and dancing because
Love it.
I get a vision of my mom cleaning the house and I'm like, yep, I can do this. But yeah, it was just such a fun, vibrant movie.
And the costumes.
And the costuming, oh my gosh. And, and I would try to, like, with my Barbies, try to emulate that style of costuming.
Yeah.
And of course, the music was just fantastic.
It is, yeah.
I mean, the whole show as a, I was trying to pick, because there's so many, like I said, we used to watch a lot of old movies, a lot of the old musicals and things. So for me to narrow it down to 3 was actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what were the biggest influences, But it, like, to me, that feels like it kind of encompasses that whole era of different styles of, that type of musical.
It really does. I mean, because, I definitely had the same experience of trying to think, well, I did watch a lot of movie musicals from that era growing up, and I could cite any one of them. Hello Dolly would be one. Oliver.
Yeah, Music Man.
Music Man, Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
Sound of Music.
Yeah.
That's not one of my favorites, but it's
yeah, well, I mean, Sound of Music was definitely influential for me, too. I went back and forth on that, like...
Yeah, so there's a ton of those, and
and actually, in one of you named my third one in that group that you just put out there. So I'm not going to tell you my third one yet.
Okay.
You're going to tell.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You got to wait.
All right.
Your third one comes first.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
What anything else about Hello Dolly? What's your favorite song from Hello Dolly?
The Hello Dolly coming down the staircase and then Louis Armstrong singing in that. Come on, that was just
I find myself when I'm like if I start off the day in like a low mood. It's actually funny that you mentioned that because I got in the car and I was like, put on your Sunday clothes. There's lots of world out there.
I mean that one. That one gets stuck in my head too. Oh my gosh, all of them are fantastic.
Yeah, the women in their parasols. And,
and the parade song at the end.
Yeah,
and
the parade
belting
by.
out that huge note.
Yeah,
A
friend of mine who is a huge Bette Midler fan actually got to see the revival on Broadway with Bette Midler.
Oh,
in the role,
wow.
And she was just like beaming from. I was like, how was it? She's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
So I was really happy for her.
Yeah. What's your third?
Okay, so my third. This was a tough one only because, well, this group did a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're still kind of doing a lot of stuff. So I was like, which thing that they created do I pick? So I'll start by saying my number one biggest influence is Monty Python.
That was like one of mine as well,
right?
Like because we used to literally run around the high school halls clanking coconuts together.
Oh my gosh! In terms of like actual media that they created, content that they created, I wasn't sure what to pick, so I was just gonna talk about Monty Python's Flying Circus, but I discovered Monty Python and the Holy Grail first. Mm-hmm. So I guess I kind of have to talk about that, or all of it,
all of it,
everything they do. I mean, and they have their hand in musical theater too, and so they're a very musical group. They're a very multimedia group with Terry Gilliam's animations that he would create. Yeah, so they really, I really was tracing back like all the things that I love that they preceded don't exist without Monty Python.
Yeah.
So just in addition to having discovered, again, is another thing that I happened to discover at that formative time in my life. When I was like a tween,
Yeah.
I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and it was the perfect time to watch it because
Yeah.
the humor just resonated with me. It was silly and absurd and kind of intellectual too, and it was just funny to me.
Yeah, I think it was in 9th or 10th grade. I don't really
Yeah.
remember. My parents
Yeah.
were a lot more strict with what we could watch, you
Yeah.
know, and so I didn't get to see all the weird things until I hit like high school.
When it's a little more relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get too that like a lot of people, it doesn't resonate with them because, and I think it's because it comes into their life at a time when they don't need it or they don't have a use for that brand of humor.
I agree. I agree.
I don't really associate with any of those people. But no judgment.
Well, you associate with me. No, I like Monty Python to me. In those years was really big. I would say the Holy Grail was probably the biggest. I mean, obviously, I watched a lot of their other stuff, but I think today, where my humor is and what I enjoy watching, I think that Monty Python is in the Holy Grail is still like the one that I can still laugh at the most because it was the biggest influence, and the rest is just kind of silly, and it doesn't annoy me, but I just kind of like don't go out of my way to watch it, but I still, like if I see, Holy Grail on, I'll be like, oh God, I should watch that, and then you're sitting there doing all the quotes again.
Yeah, we all nights will say, like, and really when you watch it, because I did rewatch it recently.
Did you?
It's a series of sketches set in Arthurian legend and medieval times. That's all it is.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
It's a sketch show.
The long running scene of the people for the fighting, it's just that.
Yeah, it's an episode of Flying Circus, but, set in this time period. And the fact that they got it made is pretty incredible. There's a 7-part documentary about about their evolution from like their beginning to like now.
Oh wow.
And there's a whole episode about Holy Grail, and it is fascinating.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. Find that one.
Yeah, they had a bunch of rock stars were fans of theirs, so that's how they got it funded.
That's how they got it funded. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Super incredible story.
Yeah, because you watch that kind of stuff and you're like, who is actually funding? Like,
putting up the money?
Who's putting up the money for this? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
No,
but yeah, that would be like the number one influence on everything that I am and my sense of humor. How I view like the lens through which I view theater and theatricality. And
I feel like that ties in so well with Rocky Horror for you and kind of that odd things and out there kind of world.
I would agree.
Yeah. I
like the weird shit.
Which is one of the reasons why I like you, Joan.
Oh, good. So what's your number one?
Well, I wouldn't say it's number one on the list. I would say, it's just the number 3 on the list.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could put those in our... Probably Phantom would probably go first as far as like order wise, but influence wise. But no, Fiddler on the Roof was another one. And it was between that and Yentl, and I think a lot of that was because I was very interested in World War II history.
Okay.
And so kind of that culture, and of course, the music is just fantastic.
The music is fabulous.
And it's just kind of that upbeat and, and you get a life lesson into seeing what other things, from a different perspective, especially, I grew up in a very sheltered community where our biggest diversity was Indigenous people, and we lived near a reservation.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
Yeah. And but we had one black girl in our entire school up until like my senior year, when there was a couple of freshmen that came in. There, like the poor girl was like, I think her family was like the only black family in the area for a long time.
Yeah. And were things difficult for them, or were they?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I didn't know her well enough to know for sure.
Yeah.
But from her friendships and things like that, I think people were really accepting. But I don't, I don't think our town necessarily, and this is probably coming from my innocence and lack of understanding at that point as well, but I don't think we were necessarily prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was more and racist. I think it was more along the I think people were, but I think if they knew you, they weren't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as a whole. So I don't know, but so it was interesting, I think, for me to see other cultures and, whitewashed a bit. I mean,
Sure.
but it was still that was leaning towards the history and different things that I wanted to know about, and understand. Yeah. So I just felt and of course I love the music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've seen that not on a professional stage, but I've seen that on stage before and stuff. And it was really cool.
And the movie is the movie's timeless.
The movie's fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. It's so many earworms, so many great songs that get stuck in your head and you don't even care. You don't even mind.
No, we don't even mind. I'll probably be humming them all the way home tonight.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the most poignant things about that movie too is actually, and I feel like you don't see this in a lot of films that star this kind of larger than life patriarch, is how he evolves.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that and how he evolves. And I love the relationship that he has with his wife and how they both evolve, really, because even she is, their song where do you love me? Don't be ridiculous. What do you know? And
I'm married to you.
And how that even in that moment of evolution for them, and that understanding, we do love each other, even though it was an arranged marriage,
But it is such a beautiful story about, culture and
and the change,
for lack of a better term.
Yes, and tradition and watching the evolution of that and at a time, seeing how the young influence the old and help move things forward.
Yeah, and against the backdrop of such a monumentally shifting world,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's a really good pick.
Yeah. That was, but boy, those were all difficult for me to really narrow down.
It's so hard.
Yeah. I think the first and easiest one was Phantom of the Opera. I was went on the list in 2 seconds, and then I'm well, now what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was pretty good. So I think, everybody should go ahead and let us know what your top 3 picks of influences are. We'd love to hear that in the comments below. And is there anything else?
Know.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want them to tell you about their favorite picks? What do you want to hear in the comments?
Yeah, just let us know what your favorite or what your biggest theatrical influence is. Of course, hearing ours, they don't have to be directly theater related.
No.
Let us know why. And subscribe to us. Smash that like button.
Smash it now. Hit the notification bell too while you're at it. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on the next Performance Anxiety.
Bye, guys.